Hello there, and welcome to today's podcast. Today I'm going to be delving a little bit deeper into the idea of rituals and just talk about the importance of simple self-care rituals for every woman. I did a podcast on this last month, and I think when I talk about rituals, when I talk about routines, a lot of people automatically think that I'm talking like an hour's yoga or a 10k run or setting aside big chunks of time. So today I'm just going to delve a little bit deeper into what simple self-care rituals can look like. And actually they are really, really simple. I'm talking about stuff that doesn't involve any external equipment. You don't necessarily need to be anywhere. You don't necessarily need to do anything. These are things that you can invite into your day several times a day if you need to, for no longer, some of them for no longer than about 2 or 3 minutes, that will just inject a little bit of calm, a little bit of joy and happiness into every day. You don't have to do them every day, but I would strongly urge you, if you do nothing else from this podcast, I would strongly urge you to try and do at least 3 or 4 of these every day. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about how you can do that. And for some women and some men, but especially for women, this can be a massive step because we don't prioritise our own health and well-being. So if you're struggling with something like endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, if you've got PMDD, if you've got anxiety or your menopause symptoms are kicking in, then quite often we're forced to rest up. And we see that enforced rest as rest in itself. But actually sometimes it can make us feel worse. If we're struggling with our symptoms, then just the simplest act of self-care can feel absolutely massive. There's also psychological barriers as well. So as women, culturally, we grow up with this expectation. I mean, it's less now than certainly in bygone generations, but there's still this cultural expectation that as women we should prioritise other people's needs first. So be that our family, our friends, our relationships, whatever, our work, our career, whatever the thing is, we should put that thing in front of us. And quite often all of these things are prioritised over our own self-care. And that's women with or without symptoms. That's women with or without endo or adenomyosis or whatever it is that we're battling with. This just applies generally to women and to men as well. But it's culturally, it's more of an expectation on women that all of these priorities go in front of us. So because of this sort of conditioning, I suppose, it can be a lot more difficult for women just to take time off. There can be a lot of guilt associated with this. It's seen as selfish. And yes, so what? Selfish isn't necessarily a bad thing. The greatest example I can give is when you're in an aeroplane and they do the safety announcement that nobody ever listens to. But they talk about when the air masks come down, they always say secure your air mask first before you secure everybody else's. So if you travelling with a child, your instinct probably would be to try and put the air mask thing on the child first. But actually, as long as you're happy, as long as you're well and you're healthy and you're alive, you can then try and save other people. And it's the same concept in day-to-day living. The healthier, happier, more resilient you feel, the more you can do for other people. So I'm not necessarily saying to shy away from this aspect of your personality of putting other people first. But actually, when you start to have boundaries, when you start to realise that your well-being means you can serve others better, in inverted commas, then that's a real mindset shift. So if you do struggle with this idea of being selfish, of being indulgent when you're prioritising your own well-being, that's kind of a nice shift, a nice way of shifting it to actually think, well, do you know what? I can support more people. I can support the people I love better when I'm in a happier place. Quite often we have competing priorities. We have busy schedules. We had this conversation this morning. Time goes by so quickly. Sometimes you sit down to do a task or you engrossed in something and you think it's half an hour gone by and bang, before you know it, it's 3.5 hours. Quite often it's easy to get lost in other stuff that we're doing. Work, careers, family, social responsibilities, whatever it is that we're doing, quite often we're packed. And we also, I know from my own life that I can go to, I'm a member of various sort of groups and things, and you can sit in a group and it's a scheduled 2-hour meeting. And then at the end of the 2 hours, everybody's like, right, I need to go, because we're too busy rushing to the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing. And we don't take a lot of time out just to be. But building these small, little, easy tasks, I'm going to say tasks, that makes it sound really unappealing, but building these small acts, tasks of self-care into your day can have a massive, massive impact. Quite often as well, we as women, and I know this from the women I work with, when we have sort of symptoms that are impacting, then we tend to overcompensate, or we want to overcompensate. So we want to do things to perfection. We want to be the first in the office. We want to be the last to leave at night. We want to be the best friend. We want to be seen to be almost like perfect. We strive for perfection. We have very high expectations of ourselves, or we can do. This is not an uncommon thing with the women I work with. And if you're stuck in this mindset as well, it can be really, really difficult. You hold yourself to such high standards that you want your self-care even to be Instagram worthy. You want to have the bubble bath, the candles. You want to go out and do yoga in your posh yoga pants. I'm not saying that these are necessarily the self-care rituals that I am recommending. But that expectation, that high expectation that self-care has to be something that you can stick on Instagram, that you want likes for, even if you're not on Instagram, you know what I mean? You want to kind of make it into something that you have to be good at. And actually self-care is not about being good at it. I mean, clearly it is, because if you're really bad at it, it's not going to be any benefit at all. But the only way really you can be bad at self-care is by not doing it. Any act of self-care, any act that you are prioritising yourself, that you're giving yourself some love, can only be beneficial. So what we want to do is to get rid of that stress mindset, get rid of that busy mindset, get rid of that victim mentality almost if we're struggling with our symptoms. We can prioritise our own well-being if we are out of that fight or flight mode. Even by doing that is an act of self-care. And again, that's not always easy, and that's not what I'm talking about today. But if you recognise yourself in any of these, then just know that you're not alone. Most women at some point will feel exactly as you're feeling, and that's heightened, especially when you're dealing with symptoms that are encroaching in your life. So in terms of how to build really gentle, simple self-care rituals into your day, it doesn't have to be anything arduous at all. So I'm going to kind of break the day down into 3 chunks. And an ideal way, if you like, is to do one gentle self-care ritual in each of these segments. So if you think about segment 1 as the morning, and that's setting a tone for the rest of the day. Now, it doesn't have to be first thing on the morning. I used to, and I suppose this is the slight ounce of perfectionism in me, I used to think that a morning ritual had to be first thing on the morning. So I was thinking, I had to do a bit of breath work, a bit of intention setting, whatever it is that that's included in my morning ritual. I had to do this the split second my eyes opened. And if I didn't, then I'd missed the slot to do my morning ritual. My day was just going to go to shit. It was going to be dreadful because I hadn't done this morning routine. But actually, it might not work for you. I find that my best morning ritual happens when I've done an hour and a half of work. So I get up early. I do a lot of work, sort of between 7 o'clock and maybe 8:30, 9:30 even in the morning. And that's when I'm starting to, my initial enthusiasm wanes, shall we say. And if I don't have meetings in the morning, if I don't have client calls in the morning, then that's when my morning ritual is its optimum, because it's when I'm starting to not self-doubt, but it's when I've kind of done all the important actions for the day. My energy levels are starting to drop. I've peaked by 9:30, which is really sad because most people aren't even into their stride at that time of the day. But for me, that's when my morning ritual is fabulous. So my morning ritual can be something as simple as writing down a word for the day, just deciding how I want to feel that day, how I want my day to feel, just simply writing down a word and then keeping in mind that word during the day. So every decision I make, everything that I do that day, I do with that word in the back of my mind. But setting that is some days all I can manage in terms of self-care for the morning. Some mornings it is a 5k run or a walk in the park. It depends on how relaxed I'm feeling. It depends on how confident I am that I've got things that need to be done. It just depends on how I'm feeling. And I'm very, very, probably a bit too relaxed in that if I say to myself, right, tomorrow I'm going to do the run, and then it gets to tomorrow, I'm like, yeah, my energies aren't really feeling it. I just go with that and I'll just set a word for the day or whatever it is that I'm going to replace that with. So yeah, it can look exactly as you want it to look. It can be with your morning brew. So you might get up, you might feed the kids, get the kids off to school, and then have your morning brew. You might have your morning brew while you're doing all of that. But your morning brew might be your self-care. So it could be that you have it in your favourite mug every day. It could be that you have a different cup of coffee and you'd have a different brand, or you have a different drink to everybody else, and that's your act of self-care. It could be that you send the kids off to school and then you have 5 minutes to spare before you need to get ready, and that 5 minutes you spend looking out the window. If you have a lovely view out of your window, I'm looking out of the window where I am now, and we live in a terraced house, so there's terraced houses opposite us, but I can see the trees in the garden of the house. I don't know if it is a garden actually, but I can see trees anyway behind the house that I'm looking out over, and just looking at the trees, looking at what leaves remain, looking at the crows in the trees. Just 2 minutes of doing that. Peace, tranquility, a little bit of happiness, all of that just comes into my life very, very, very briefly. And even that brief fleeting moment is enough to lift your spirits, lift your vibrations. Setting intentions as well. So you don't have to necessarily have a word for the day, but simply setting an intention on the drive to work or the drive to drop the kids off or whatever it is that you're doing. Setting that intention is sometimes all you need to do. So if you are wanting a gentle day, you can have a word for the day which is gentle, or you could have an intention. Today I am going to be gentle with myself. So really, really nice way to give yourself permission to do things differently today if you want to. Food, you could have your actual breakfast as your morning ritual. So you could have something really, really healthy, or you could have something really, really unhealthy. Just savouring that first meal of the day, just eating your breakfast mindfully could be your morning ritual. Your shower. The shower is a fantastic place to ground yourself if you're feeling as if you need grounding. And these are things that you're going to be doing anyway. So you're not actually taking any extra time out. You're not necessarily, I know sometimes I said I go for a run or a walk around the park, but you don't have to take any extra time out of your day. These are things that you're doing already. Putting on your favourite album in the car as you're driving to work, or in your headphones when you're on the train. These are all really lovely ways of making yourself feel fabulous in the moment. And feeling fabulous in the moment, if you increase the moments during the day that you're feeling fabulous, before long you just have fabulous days all the time. So the second segment, obviously, it's not going to take a genius to work out that this is the afternoon segment. So again, have something in your toolkit, have something in your mind that you know will make you feel good. So it might be something similar to your morning ritual. It could be your favourite cup of coffee. It could be looking out of the window. It could be, if you work in an office, finding your favourite person and chatting to your favourite person. Just finding joy in something in the afternoon will be a lovely way of just raising your vibrations. Again, especially when you're struggling with your symptoms, it can be really difficult just getting through the day. So knowing that you've got something in the afternoon to look forward to, whenever you choose to do it. And this is the other thing. You can either set a time. So I know that my morning ritual is best served between sort of 8:30 and 9:30. But I'm not going to say that I have to do it between 8:30 and 9:30, because then if it gets to 9:30 and I haven't done it, I don't want to feel as if it's too late. But conversely, if you are really struggling one day, then knowing that come 9:30, I will be doing X, Y, Z, it can just give you that boost to get through your day until that point. Taking breaks for your mind is really, really important. So things like, again, looking out of the window, doing some breath work, literally just turning away. If you spend a lot of time on the computer, turning away from the screen and just physically focusing on something else for a few minutes. If you work in an office, just taking a walk up and down the stairs, getting outside, again, opening the window, just taking some fresh air. Doesn't need to be massive. I used to, when I worked in the office, I quite often used to walk to the toilets. I used to go down a flight of stairs because there was nicer toilets downstairs. So I'd go downstairs, go to the toilet, and it wasn't necessarily even that I needed the toilet, but it was just some time for me to get some space. And for me, running water is massively impactful on my mental health, on my well-being. I love running water. It grounds me, it helps me get clarity. I get some of my best inspiration comes when I'm in the shower, much to my husband's annoyance, because it means I'm in the shower for quite a long time sometimes. But water's really impactful for me. So even just going into the toilets and running my hands under warm water had a massive, massive calming and grounding effect for me. So I used to even say something like, if I was doing a task that I really wasn't enjoying, I'd just be like, right, I'll get this done, and then I'll take some time out. And that would be my time out, literally walking downstairs, hands under running warm water, back to my desk feeling revitalised. So just knowing what revitalises you, what energises you, can really, really make a difference. And having a time in your mind, or a trigger almost, so at the end of this task, this is what I'm going to do. And then for the clever ones amongst you, you will realise that the third segment is the evening. So what evening rituals will you have? What evening resting, wind down rituals work for you? So again, this could be a sleep routine. This could be having a shower before bed. It could be spritzing some aromatherapy oils onto your pillow. It could be putting your favourite pyjamas on. Whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be a bedtime routine. It doesn't have to be a sleep routine. Journaling, again, you know that I love a good journaling session, but again, it doesn't need to be massive. You don't need to do it at bedtime, you can do it at any time, but it's lovely to do an evening wind down gratitude journal. Just talk about, just list one or two things that have made you smile that day, that you're grateful for. Just helps you feel positive, end the day on a positive note, or start your evening on a positive note. Things like dimming the lights. I love doing this, especially at this time of year when the nights are really drawing in. It's really, really nice to get some, or I think it's really nice. It's very, very personal, this. I shouldn't tell you what's nice, but I love it when I have some ambient lighting. So lamp shades, nice gentle light bulbs, candles. Even if you're nervous about having real candles, you can get some really, really fabulous artificial ones. I was in the clinic the other day and I have artificial candles in my clinic space, and one of my fabulous clients commented saying how lovely the candles were, but she was surprised I was allowed them in the building with all the sort of fire eggs and stuff, and I pointed out they weren't real, and they honestly, they look real. I use them for meditation, and I've done women's circles with them where people just look into the flame and it's hard to tell that it's not a real candle. So getting some LED artificial candles around the room, creating some really, really calming, dim lighting can really, really help your body just relax, because your body gets into that. We are animals. We are still having those primordial, whatever the word is, instincts that when it's getting dark, we want to huddle, we want to be together, we want to be safe, we want to be winding down. So creating that environment in your home space on an evening is a really, really nice way to gently wind down as well. Again, what are you going to have for tea? Are you going to have a glass of wine? All of these things are things that we shouldn't feel guilty of. If you're going to have pudding, enjoy the pudding. Don't eat it full of guilt. Enjoy the sensation, enjoy the guilt almost of eating the pudding. But just do a really gentle self-care ritual that involves something that makes you happy, makes your soul sing. Just one task every evening. So self-care doesn't have to be grand gestures. It doesn't have to be massively time-consuming. It doesn't have to be something that you dread, that does become a task. It can just be these small things. And actually, I would argue that it should be more about having these small things every day, at least one in every segment. So you're doing at least 3 every day. And the more you do, the happier you will feel, the better, in inverted commas, you will perform at whatever duties you need to be performing. And you can really make a massive difference just by doing these really small, gentle self-care rituals. And again, the more you do them, it's exactly what I say with everything else I do. The more you do them, the more natural they become, the more routine they become, with a small r, a gentle routine, the more routine they come. And when you're really struggling with overwhelm, when you're really struggling with your symptoms, you have this natural toolkit available to you where you can just sit back, and sometimes all it takes is to turn the lights out and just have one candle on, and suddenly everything feels just that little bit more gentle. So thank you very much for joining me today. Prioritise yourself. Selfish isn't always bad. It's not indulgent to take 5 minutes and go and run your hands under some warm water. It's not indulgent to have a bubble bath. It's not indulgent to have a bath without any bubbles that you couldn't post on Instagram. It's absolutely beautiful just doing whatever it is that's going to make your soul sing, just for 2 or 3 minutes a day. 3 days, at least 3 times a week, one in every segment, one morning, one afternoon and one evening. So try that, please. One every segment. Let me know how it feels. Let me know if you discover anything new about yourself. And I should also say as well that I do have a programme, 41 Days to Fabulous. It's one of my e-learning programs, and I've actually set them up now so that my listeners to my podcast, or you guys, can get a discount as well. So when you go to the checkout, if you just put in podcast, it'll give you a discount as well. I'll put the link to the 41 Days to Fabulous in the description for this podcast. So if you do want to try it out, then please do try the podcast discount. And that works on all of my e-learning programs as well. So there's, I shouldn't have started this. There's Managing Menopause Naturally. There is an Endometriosis one. There's a Problem Periods one. There's a 41 Days to Fabulous one. And there's more coming next year as well. So enjoy. Thank you very much for listening today. I do hope that you managed to take away some gentle tips. And I do hope that you will join me next time. Thank you very much.